What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. Well, you guys see the marker board and you see what's on the marker board, right? We're going to talk about some science today. You might be like, Jerry, the fuck do you know about science? Hang on. We'll get into it. So we're going to talk about muscle gain, fat loss at the same time. Oh, no. Recomping, Jerry. That's called recomping. Hang on a second. So there are many people out there that still subscribe to the idea that you have to be in a caloric deficit to lose fat. You have to be in a caloric surplus to gain muscle. And you can only be in one or the other at one time. So therefore, you're either gaining muscle or losing fat. Bottom line. They do not subscribe to the idea that you can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. Although we've seen it, well, we're going to get into it right now, right? So what they basically, break it down to, we'll go over this so that everybody understands it. Because after this video today, there isn't a single person out there that's going to believe that you can't build muscle and lose fat at the same time. Okay, hang on, right? So, of course, you talk about the caloric deficit as well as the caloric surplus, right? All right, so that's where our basic starting is, right? So surplus means you gain weight, deficit means you lose weight, right? Now, when you have an individual that their training, their diet, whatever, it's kind of stalled, right? They call it a plateau. I don't believe in plateaus. I don't believe in any plateau is a real thing. I believe a plateau is a failure to plan properly. Because the bottom line is you should not hit a plateau if you've planned properly and understand what's happening with your physique or your client or whatever the case may be. You should not hit a plateau. You should know what's coming next. You've made the body predictable by doing certain things that you're doing. And the body is a machine. It will do the same things over and over again if you're doing the same things over and over again. Meaning if you're doing a bench press over and over again, the body will continue to grow muscle in your chest over and over again. Other places too, but the bottom line is being consistent with what you're doing, your body will be consistent with the results based on what you're doing, okay? So if you're constantly in a deficit, yeah, you're gonna have a hard time gaining muscle, right? You keep doing what you're doing. If your body's in a surplus, you're gonna keep gaining muscle, possibly gaining fat, but you're not gonna lose because you're constantly in a surplus. So these are the two constant things, right? So we're looking at constants, right? Now check this out. When I say recomp, some of you go, oh, Jerry, I know what recomp is. Okay, tell me what recomp is. Okay, the first time that we see recomp, right, is with newbie gains, right? Newbie gains, the first time we see recomp. What does this mean? It means somebody's never trained before, right? They've never done anything before as far as exercise, etc. They've never run a diet before. They've never done steroids before. They've never done anything. They're a newbie to the gym. So they walk in the gym and they start training and they start eating a little bit better, right? They're not going crazy with the diet. They don't really understand diet that much, but just the training alone throws the hormones in a certain balance to where now they are gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time. Newbie gains. And people always say stuff like, enjoy the newbie gains because they don't last long. Eventually they stop, which is true, right? Eventually they stop. But when have we also seen recomp, and this is something that people are like, oh, newbie gains are one thing, right? But gaining muscle and losing fat, other than newbie gains, you have to be in a caloric deficit to lose fat. You have to be in a surplus. That's where these start coming in, after newbie gains, right? Well, what if there's another time we see recomp, right? Is that when we have injury or layoff, right? When we come back from an injury or layoff, we're now gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time. Same thing happens that happens in the newbie gains, except now you're not a newbie. You've been detrained, right? So people would be like, well, Jerry, detraining is like being a newbie. But it's not. Why is it different? Because you have something called muscle memory, right? What muscle memory is after the newbie gains, when you've built a certain amount of muscle, your body now has technically a genetic blueprint. It is built living tissue that your body actively uses every single day. Now, as you get injured or have a layoff, your body doesn't need that tissue anymore, so you lose that tissue, right? So muscle memory dictates once you've already built it, it grows back twice as fast. It goes back really fast, let's be real, right? And you get right back to where you were in a very short amount of time. It doesn't take the same amount of time as it took you to originally build it, right? Muscle memory, the muscle technically has memory of where it was before, and it can go right back there very quickly. Okay, so you can lose body fat and gain muscle with this muscle memory, right? It's a new thing, muscle memory, right? Interesting, okay. Newbies don't have muscle memory. This is new, right? Okay, so this is two instances that that you can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. There's another time, right? Check this out. Steroids. Steroids can help you gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. How? How does that work? Because, I mean, newbie gains are done. We don't even know how that works, but we're going to get into it in a second. You know, for those of you that don't know how newbie gains work, we're going to get into it in a second. It's not about injuries, right? We're a healthy individual who's been training for a long period of time, say 2-3 years, or whatever the case may be. Your body fat has stalled, your muscle gains have stalled, you have stalled. You go on steroids, and all of a sudden you start losing fat and gaining muscle again, right? New gains you have. So now your body, again, you're looking at your body, you're physically watching your body, right? Now, when is the only time you can't gain muscle and lose fat, right? When you start fucking with these up here and paying attention to these, right? Well, this is why you can't, right? Because you have to be in it. So hang on a second. So we have 3 instances, right here, that show us that we can gain muscle and lose fat, that our bodies are capable of doing it, right? It's not just newbie gains. There's 3 times. Now, the only time that you technically will not gain muscle or lose fat at the same time was when you are in that plateau, right? In that plateau, your body's stale. Boom. If you are gaining muscle or losing fat by itself, you are manipulating these right here on your own. So you are making your body not be able to gain muscle and lose body fat by manipulating only these 2 things right here and just concentrating on one or the other. You might be like, Jerry, what the fuck? This is where it gets complicated. This is where people don't understand. I have proven over and over again for myself, as well as my clients, over and over again for decades, that we can gain muscle and lose fat, and it will not be newbie gains, it won't be an injury, and it will not be muscle memory, and it will not be steroids. So how would we do it? We do it by not hitting plateaus. Well, how do you do that, Jerry? Okay, let's get into it. I think people, they really put so much emphasis on diet to whether or not you're going to gain muscle, lose fat. They put so much on diet that they themselves, or calories in general, that they themselves don't really pay attention to what else is going on and what else causes your body to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. When you're a newbie, right, you have a new stress to your body, right? So your body is essentially using weight training in a different way, or your body's using weight training so that your body recovers in a different way, heals in a different way, and then grows in a different way than it usually is. So you've basically added a stimulus, right? Which is weightlifting, right? You've added in weightlifting. Now your body responds to the weightlifting, right? Okay, so how does your body respond to the weightlifting? By building muscle, right? By building muscle. Your body builds muscle with the weight training. So the newbie uses the weight training to build muscle, right? That's one aspect of what's going on with that newbie. What else is there? Okay, well, building muscle, what do you have to have for building muscle? You have to have the materials to build muscle, right? You have to have amino acids, right? How do you get amino acids? Protein, right? Now here's where we start to look at something different, something that many people don't understand out there. Hitting your protein needs, okay? Your amino acids, your protein needs will get your body to build muscle whether you are in a deficit or not. Holy shit. Protein is different than both of the other macronutrients. Protein is what is needed to get those amino acids to continue to grow new muscle tissue. So you have the weight training, which is a stimulus, right? Which your body goes, holy shit, there's a stress coming up. We need to adapt to this stress in order to get ready for the next time this happens. We're in adaptive response right now. So we'll adapt to that stress by changing our hormones, right? The stress hormones, to get our body to heal, to build new muscle, and we need those building blocks. So if you're covering your protein and amino acid needs, and you're in a deficit, you are going to grow new muscle tissue as a newbie. The number one things that most newbies actually do is immediately increase their protein intake. It's almost like right away. So they'll start training with weights. The first thing they do is go out and buy a meal replacement or a protein shake. Like that's the first thing that they do is they start taking, I'm working out, I gotta take a protein shake. So part of what happens with those newbie gains is your body changes hormonally into a more anabolic environment because you're now using a stimulus that is making your body want to adapt to that stimulus and grow new muscle tissue to get better at being that stimulus. And at the same time, to do that, you need more protein to get your amino acids to build a muscle to have all this happen, right? So what happens over here, right? When we go down here to the injury. When you get injured, what are you doing? You're not training, right? So you're not doing your training, or your layoff, whatever the case may be, and you're probably not eating the protein you were eating before. You don't need to eat it, right? So you lost muscle. So now what happens is you start eating the protein and you start training with weights. Do you see a theme here? So we start training with the weights here, right? We start eating the protein here to get your amino acids, right? So all these things are working the same way here. Okay? So muscle memory, that is muscle memory. So that's these two right here, right? Now what happens with steroids, right? Steroids, what we're doing is we're putting steroids in our body, where our bodies have maxed out naturally, etc., whatever, however you want to say it. We put those steroids which increase those anabolic hormones. Anabolic means muscle building, right? So now what happens is as you're training with weights, your weight training, right? So your steroids with weight training, you start eating more protein to get your amino acids, right? And this amplifies this whole process faster than all of these. So you get even better gains. And by increasing those steroids and increasing the protein and the amino acids, the muscle gets bigger and stronger and it breaks through its limits and can continue to go because your body cannot keep up naturally with what you're putting in there synthetically. Now, we have more ways, again, that the body can build muscle and lose fat at the same time than we have ways that it can't. And it all seems to revolve around two things. Hang on. It revolves around two things. Weight training and protein or / amino acids. So building muscle in a deficit, in a caloric surplus, at any time, these are the two things that we want to do to build muscle, right? Now, we got to get to the fat loss part, right? So for fat loss, how do we lose fat at the same time that we're building muscle? Well, now we start looking at it and saying, okay, we need to tap into the stored energy on our body. So how do we do that? Well, you have two forms of energy that you take in, right? You have carbohydrates, which turns glucose and glycogen, and you have fats, which turn into fatty acids, triglycerides. You can turn into body fat. You can use it for energy, but these are basically food sources that are energy, right? So in order to make sure that we're using what's already stored on our body, right, we're going to have to limit these to a certain amount. Now, the question is how? You need to take enough carbohydrates in to fuel those workouts to make sure that you're going to be able to build muscle with those workouts. You need to take enough fats in to have your essential fatty acids, hormone production, etc., stuff like that, right? Fat-soluble vitamins, fat-digestible vitamins. So there has to be a certain amount of these. The problem is most people that are trying to gain muscle and lose fat don't realize how to manipulate these three things. These three things coupled with the weight training, and we'll go one step further and throw cardio in there. We'll make another variable in there, and cardio, which helps increase your body's, of course, calorie burning, but it increases your body's central nervous system. It increases the way that your respiratory system works, your circulatory system, everything. It makes your body a better machine. What do you think happens when those things are all better? Faster results, faster healing, healthier individual. So by combining cardio, weight training, and diet, okay, you have three things. Cardio, weight training, diet. Those three things will build muscle and burn fat when combined in the proper ways for the person that is, whether a newbie, not a newbie, whatever the case may be. You don't have to be a newbie on steroids, or you can build muscle and lose fat if you know how to set your protein and amino acids to build muscle and where to set your carbohydrates and fats to make sure that you're not over-consuming so your body uses fat for energy. By using cardio, you can also then keep your metabolism elevated. A higher metabolism with higher protein and higher amino acids while you're training in the gym with weights, your body is going to gain muscle, lose fat at the same time. And you don't even have to know whether or not you're in a deficit. Just get these numbers. You don't even have to know how many calories you're taking in. But I can guarantee if you're the type of person that's concentrating only on fat loss or building muscle because you have to be in a positive or negative calorie balance, yes, building muscle and building muscle and losing fat at the same time is impossible when you're looking at one variable. The problem is there's more than one variable. There's two variables with multiple variables in between, and you don't understand them. But make no mistake about it, the human body can build muscle and lose body fat in more pathways and more ways than it can't. So therefore, it is my conclusion, you guys are gonna love this, that not only can the body build muscle and lose fat at the same time, but it actually has more ways to do it than not do it, which means it should be easier for you to do it if all the variables are in the right place. The problem is manipulating those variables, which 99% of people, I believe, even coaches and gurus out there, don't understand. They go by what they see in books, they go by what scientists say, and they just go by what's in forums and shit like that, and they don't really understand. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't tell you all the chemical pathways of this stuff. I couldn't tell you exactly how all this stuff works, but I can tell you that I've replicated it so many times that any fucking scientist or doctor would say those results are absolutely clinical worthy. They have been replicated over and over and over again without fail with a simple formula that I figured out by succeeding and failing on my own. That has nothing to do with a textbook or nothing to do with papers that have been published or anything like that. However, it's been replicated over and over, which means those variables can be manipulated. There is a way to do it. And that means you can build muscle and lose fat at the same time, despite what people in forums say. Science says, because it can be replicated over and over again, science says not only is it possible, but your body prefers to do that, and you just have not been planning correctly. BiologyTraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. BiologyTraining.com is a blog. It's the Plan Correctly Bicep, and we are out.